After a decade of experiencing the Premier League where the majority of the campaigns end up being won very comfortably by the eventual champions, like some of Liverpool and Man City's recent wins, this year's title race is really heating up to be one of the best in a while, with the main protagonists this time around being Man City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. Going into the final 8 weeks of the season, only a 2-point difference separates first through third, with Liverpool and Arsenal only separated by goal difference. Every team also has pretty similar schedules ahead of them to finish off the season. Actually, except Man City, their schedule seems a little bit easier, but they probably cheated in order to get that somehow. Add another charge to the tally. With all things considered, this really begs the question, who is going to win the Premier League? This season has been filled with ups and downs for all of these guys, so I do think it's important to explore how they got to their current positions in order to really say who is going to come out on top. And real quick boys, if you're new to the channel and you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. We're dropping weekly video essays, weekly FC24 content, so make sure you hit that notification bell and you don't miss any of the new uploads. And if you're not new to the channel boys, welcome back. Glad to have you around for another video. But with that being said boys, let's get into who's going to be winning the Premier League this year. This entire video, I just want you guys to know, it makes me feel like that video of Gary Neville, and then just add one more.
For the title, it's like having a choice of two blokes and nick your wife.
Man City are following up what is easily the best season in the history of the club. If you don't agree with that, you're delusional, because City have like no history. That was without a doubt their best season in history so far. They managed to not only achieve a Premier League three-peat, but they also capped off the season by winning a treble, which also included their first ever Champions League win. Add to this the fact that their star signing Haaland more than exceeded the expectations that many people had placed on him, unfortunately for Rory.
Erling Haaland will not live up to the expectation. I am so bored.
And things looked ever so promising for City this season. Literally everything was going perfect for Man City. It was driving me crazy. Yet despite how promising everything did look for City, it has not been a cakewalk to the top of the table this time around. In the summer window before this season, City made a couple of transfers in and out of the club that definitely turned some heads. On the way out was Laporte, Mahrez, Gundogan, who had all played big parts in City's success to date. Hope really respected the grind so much that he shipped off key players in order to make the league harder for himself. And they also shipped off Cole Palmer, which in hindsight was a big loss, but relative to when they did let him go, it didn't seem like that big of a deal at the moment. To replace those departures, City signed Kovacic, Doku, Guardiola, and Nunez. And you could say some of them are better and some of them are worse than the ones that they replaced, but ultimately still great players with lots of upside. Well, this season so far has not been the usual for Pep and City in the Premier League. At times, they've dropped as low as 4th place and haven't really solidified their #1 spot yet. With players like Haaland, De Bruyne, and Stones all facing spells on the sidelines due to injury, City have found themselves in a relatively unfamiliar position as they've been chasing that top spot for large chunks of the campaign. But as usual, City have hit a different gear and they haven't lost a league game since December, and now they find themselves in 1st place. They also just got bounced out the Champions League by Real Madrid, so now they have even more bandwidth to really focus on the league. Liverpool this time around are trying to make a return to their triumphant form that saw them win the Premier League and the Champions League in recent years. A lot of people wrote them off for this campaign since the year before they found themselves struggling greatly to maintain any consistent form. This year would be an opportunity for them to silence the haters like myself. Well, to bolster their squad, Liverpool had a very criticized transfer window that saw the arrival of Gravenberch, McAllister, Wataru Endo, and Szoboszlai to replace the outgoing Fabinho, Henderson, Milner, Keita, Firmino, and Oxlade-Chamberlain. Although credit was given to the arrivals of McAllister and Szoboszlai, many people, including myself, scoffed at the idea of the likes of Gravenberch and Endo being enough to replace the midfielders that did leave the club. Well, this season, Liverpool have definitely seen a return to prior form, as throughout the season, they have maintained a presence in the top 2 spots of the league. Despite injuries throughout the season to Jota, Alisson, Robertson, Salah, and also Thiago being out for the entire season, Liverpool have powered through and have shown their dominance once again, as they've been thrashing teams this season left, right, and center. Add to this the emotional aspect of the announcement that this is going to be Klopp's final season in charge, and you have a recipe for a team that's going to give it their all to win the title. However, unfortunately for Liverpool, since they lost to United in the FA Cup in dramatic fashion, for whatever reason, it feels like things have not been the same. They've now dropped points in 2 consecutive games, again failing to beat Man United this season.
His gun jammed.
And they also lost to Crystal Palace, which, you know, did invoke some nostalgia for hate watchers like myself. And they also absolutely got clapped up by Atlanta at 3-0 at home in the first leg of the Europa League quarterfinals, which all but put an end to that campaign, which now leads many to question how Liverpool is going to handle the last 8 games of the season when the pressure is on. And for Arsenal, this season was meant to be their announcement to the world that they were here to stay when it comes to being a main contender for the Prem. Having bottled the league last year in the last couple of weeks, Arteta wanted to make sure this didn't happen again, and used the summer transfer window to acquire world-class talent in Declan Rice and one of the most promising young defenders in Jurriën Timber, and he also signed Havertz. On top of that, he also shipped off a lot of deadwood in order to maintain a high standard of quality at the club. He was able to achieve that, and honestly, Arsenal have been very impressive this season and have maintained a pretty consistent presence at the top of the table. Despite a handful of setbacks such as the loss of Timber for the entire season and having Kai Havertz in their squad, Arsenal have been able to tear apart many sides and continue to grow from their last campaign. However, in recent weeks, the performances from Arsenal have been a tad bit sloppy, and they recently dropped points to City and Villa, which lost them their top spot. And now, add to this the fact that they lost to Bayern Munich again in the Champions League, and things are really starting to look like they're going to take a turn for the worse at Arsenal. So again, now that the pressure's on, we all have to see how Arsenal are going to cope when the lights are the brightest. So now that we have a good picture for how all three of these teams have kind of been throughout the season, it's time that we get into the juicy part. Who is going to walk away as Premier League champion? Well, let's break it down on a week-to-week basis. Follow along because it's going to get pretty dramatic here. So for game week 34, this upcoming game week as of this recording, City play Brighton, which is actually a replay of match day 29. Arsenal have a double game week against Wolves and Chelsea, and Liverpool also have a double game week against Everton and Fulham. For City, I highly doubt they're going to struggle against Brighton. They're probably going to unleash a fury that they were not able to unleash on Real Madrid in the Champions League. This is probably going to be a very easy 3-1 victory for them. For Arsenal, it might be a bit more complicated this week since they have 2 games in a 3-day span and they just exerted so much energy against Bayern Munich. Wolves will probably be a hard-fought 2-0 victory, as in the last 5 games they've matched up, Arsenal have won every single time. I doubt much is going to be different this time around. But they then have to play a Chelsea side that is led by a red-hot Cole Palmer. The guy got back-to-back hat-tricks. Not to that the stakes that this is also a London derby. Chelsea are trying to make a late climb in the table, and Arsenal fatiguing as the season goes on, and I can see this game finishing 2-2 and Arsenal dropping some points. Liverpool also have 2 games that are 3 days apart, and the first one in that lineup is against Fulham, who they have recently always had tight games against. I can see this Fulham game being a difficult one for Liverpool, especially since it's at Craven Cottage. Ultimately, they'll probably come out as 2-1 winners. They then play a poor Everton side that honestly stand no chance. This is going to be a 3-0 pounding from Liverpool. After this game week, which would be match day 34, we're looking at Arsenal in 3rd, City in 2nd, and Liverpool in 1st, with Arsenal and Liverpool both having a game in hand. In game week 35, Liverpool are facing off against a West Ham side that has been pretty inconsistent throughout the season. Typically, Liverpool are able to make pretty quick work of West Ham, and I don't really see things being different this time around. 3-0 Liverpool. For City, they match up against Forest, and if this isn't the most predictable 6-0 win ever, then I don't know what is. For Arsenal, however, things are very interesting this week. As for them, it is a North London derby. Arsenal are pushing for the title, Spurs are pushing for a top 4 finish. The stakes are there. Both teams desperately need a win. When they played earlier in the season, they had a 2-2 draw, but it really does feel like a lot of things have changed since then. I believe this game is going to end in a 1-1 draw this time around, as both teams have been too shaky as of late for either of them to be front runners for this game. In the league table, positionally, everything stays the same after this game week, but City and Liverpool gain some points on Arsenal. Game week 36 sees Liverpool face off against Spurs. In case you missed it, Spurs are going to have a very big deciding factor on this title race. I believe this game is going to be challenging for Liverpool. Call me crazy, but I really think this game is going to end up being a 3-2 win for Spurs as they cash in on some luck and throw a wrench in the works. City play Wolves, which will probably be a very easy 3-0 win for City. I know they lost to Wolves earlier this season, but having been bounced out of the Champions League, City's probably going to be on a crazy revenge tour. Arsenal play Bournemouth, which is probably going to be a 4-0 win for Arsenal. It's pretty inevitable. After this game week, we see City reclaim the top spot from Liverpool as Liverpool falls into 2nd and Arsenal remain in 3rd, now just 1 point off Liverpool. Alright, so game week 37 is a massive game week in this prediction. It all comes down to this. This week can potentially decide the Premier League champion. Game week 37 sees City having a double game week against Spurs and Fulham, Arsenal facing United, and Liverpool facing Villa. Box office games right here, okay? For Liverpool, I do unfortunately believe this is the end of the road for them. With Villa being in great form and the games being played at their stadium, I do believe Villa is going to squeeze out a 2-1 victory. It is also important to remember that Villa are in the top 4 race, so they are going to be giving their all in every single game that they have remaining. Arsenal play United at Old Trafford. Honestly, I don't really think United have it in them to beat this Arsenal side. Despite the emotional setbacks for Arsenal, they'll probably end up playing us out the park in a 3-1 victory for them. For City this game week, they first play Fulham and then they play Spurs just 3 days later. Fulham is probably going to end up being light work for City, so I could easily see this being a 3-4-5-0 victory. However, I do think they're going to struggle against Spurs. For whatever reason, Spurs seem to be a bit of a bogey team against City as they either struggle to beat beat them or don't beat them at all. If City win or draw, they will be crowned champions this week. However, a loss will take things to the final game week between Arsenal and City, when the final whistle blows for the City versus Spurs game. Unfortunately for the footballing world, City will have drawn 2-2 with Spurs, meaning it will now be mathematically impossible for anyone to catch them. That's correct, we are on the precipice of a 4-peat for Manchester City. Final game week doesn't matter too much in my prediction here, because at that point, like I said, no one can catch City. Arsenal and Liverpool are either going to finish second or third respectively. Who finishes where doesn't really matter too much, but I do believe ultimately City are just going to tear the league apart as they always do in the final couple of game weeks. I hate to say it, but I think it's definitely going to be true. But hey, at least they didn't win the treble, and it's a good thing they won't make the FA Cup final. That's just my prediction, boys. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you, boys, for watching this far. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and you know what, maybe it's not too late for United to win the league.